Hi friends, welcome to the Gospel Nomad Girl channel where I talk about life, love, and living by faith. Today I wanted to share an update on spring 2020. So I actually already did one of these and didn't post it because I wanted to edit it. So this is even a couple more months down the line, but the content's still about the same. My spring has just been so full of transitions and so full of just like keeping in step with the Lord, and just all the changes that He had me going through, as well as these additional ones with COVID and how that's affecting every single one of us in different ways. But this story actually starts back in October. So in May of 2019, I moved from the East Coast to the Midwest for a 1-year internship with a ministry that does 24/7 prayer, worship, and intercession. And God was bringing me there to be a blessing, but also to receive a blessing. And so for me, it was kind of more of like an Enoch season, or as some would say, a Mary of Bethany, just sitting at the feet of Jesus and just having that space and time just to behold the beauty of Jesus and pray and be with 100 other interns that were in this for a year. And we were on night shift, so I was spending about 36 hours a week, from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. in a prayer room, and then we would have classes in addition in the evening. So it was kind of like night shift. And there were so many amazing things about that. And God also took me there just to help speak into a few things with Bible prophecy. And how timely. I mean, look at what's going on in the world. It's a little bit crazy, and what we do believe does really matter, because there are truths out there and there are untruths. And what we believe affects how we respond and react to our circumstances, and creating peace or creating fear. Anyways, but in October, I was just having my devotional time one morning with the Lord, and it was on the story of Abraham. You know, how Abraham was called to leave his family and go to a place he did not know. I didn't think a whole lot about that at that moment until I got an email later that day from my oldest sister, who was letting us know that because her third child was coming in November, that this time she was mandating that our whole family get the flu shot and then the Tdap. I think that's the whooping cough thing for babies. Or we would not be allowed at her house for Christmas. So my whole family had been anticipating for months on end that we would all be at the East Coast with my sister for Christmas, celebrating the birth of this newest little addition to our family, her third little girl. And I was so looking forward to being Auntie Dana, because my nieces are the delight of my heart. Like, I just love those girls, and I don't get to see them as often as I would like, because my sister and her husband, due to the nature of their work, often live overseas and different countries, and so it's just more limited than I would like. But I was just so looking forward to having a month on my Christmas break from my internship to spend out on the East Coast with my nieces, with the dogs that are now senior dogs, and just hang out with my family. But as soon as I got that email, I knew I would not be on the coast with my family. So I was a little bit bummed. And again, this is not a video about pro-vaccinations or not pro-vaccinations. I'm just letting you know that I just knew immediately I would not be out there for winter break. And so I was like, oh, well, man, God, what is it that you have for me then? What is it you have for me during Christmas? Because that's not what, I just don't even know what your plan is. And so just keeping that in prayer. And then also the internship was a 3-track, so 3 quarters, however you want to say, broken up during the year. And just still praying about, the next session and whether or not I'd be returning, anticipating I'm returning. My lease on my apartment was not ending until May 2020 because I had planned to be there for a full year. And again, like I was there and we were not supposed to be working for the first 6 months. It was just total consecration, distraction free as much as possible. And so I knew when January hit, I needed to be working again. I absolutely needed to be working again in order just to sustain myself, because my resources would have come to an end, that I had to be able to do that internship. And so that's all that was on my plate at that moment. And just how it worked out, I ended up being able to spend Christmas out on the West Coast in California with one of my friends who was going through some challenging health struggles and just going to doctor's appointments and just having a friend time, you know, for the week that I was there. Spent Christmas Day there and then flew out. Because the other thing that God had on my plate was going to a conference in Kentucky, a youth conference. How did that even come about? Well, I got a text message one morning, probably around November sometime, from a international student who had lived in my parents' house for a period of time, because my parents used to host international students. So there was a college just a couple blocks away and a bunch of ESL students. So that was kind of just their ministry, to give free room and board at that time to students, to help them, you know, in their get through school as economically as possible. And just that was my parents' ministry. So I met a lot of people. I have a lot of Brazilian sisters and sisters from other South American countries now. So just have met so many neat people in that. But this one was just like, hey, Dana, are you going to this youth conference in Kentucky? And I was just like, no, I'm not. And she's like, hey, do you know anything about housing down there? And so I was like, well, let me check out and see if I know anybody. Let me look up the conference, see what the dates are, and if they have a Facebook page, which they have in the past for housing. And so I went on the website to look at it, and I saw that they had a mission trip ahead of this conference. And I was like, immediately I was impressed that I needed to be going to that mission trip pre-session. And I looked at it, I'm like, I don't even fit in this age bracket, let alone it says if you're not in the age bracket and you're not a local, then you're not going to be able to participate in it. And so I was like, well, that just doesn't even work. You know, even if I was local, then I could participate in it during the day and I wouldn't have to worry about housing. But anyways, I was like, I filled out the application and turned it in. And I got accepted. So I'm flying back from California on Christmas Day, expecting to do my laundry and sleep a little bit, repack, and get on the road on the 26th of December to get to this mission trip, which starts that day. And when I'm packing, God's reminding me, Dana, you didn't talk to the leadership about this topic that I asked you to. Dana, I need you to speak again about these other two topics that I have asked you to speak to them about. So in the middle of the night of the 25th, I'm doing videos such as these on the topics that God asked me to speak to them about, and just nervous. And I was just like, God, but I don't even think the leadership is in town right now. I think they're out of town. I look up on a website for the conference. I think oh no, it doesn't start for another day. So I'm just a hot mess because I'm nervous. Like, I was like, God, like I feel like you always got the wrong girl for this stuff. You know, I'm not that good at these things. And I just melt when I have opposition or negative energy coming at me, not because what the Lord has told me is different, but it's just, I sense energy so easily, and just, I don't like conflict. I'm a peacemaker. We want harmony. We want to build up. We want to, pursue the ways of the Lord, and because that just works the best. And we want truth and to know truth. And so all these things. And Anyway, so I was fasting and praying and was finally able to go and speak to the leader on the morning of the 27th. Had that conversation. Went differently than I anticipated it would, because again, I can be very verbose and thorough on a topic, and I just felt like a cat's meow at times. I'm like, well, what about this? So anyways, but I did it, and I was faithful, and the Lord just gave me the verse, how when we are weak, we are strong, and how our weakness is made perfect in his strength. Like, so he's the one over this. He's the one that calls. He's the one that's working it out and accomplishing things that we may not even recognize when we're just sitting there looking at where we think that we fell short or could have done more. Anyways, I drive 8 hours to Kentucky to go to this mission trip, and it's just great. You know, there was a capacity for 100 young adults to be on it. There was 30 about total and international. So you had people from Dubai, you have people from England, you have people from Canada, people from the Caribbean islands that are all there. And fantastic just to be able to, again, always my favorite, to be with young people that just love Jesus, want to do outreach. And so we get there, and this is all about finding ways to help the refugees in that city. So so what did we do for this week? So we had a week before the 4-day conference. I think it was 4 days conference. It's called Generation Youth for Christ. And so we were setting up for the outreach day, which would take place during the mission trip also. And what were we doing? We were distributing over 8,000 tote bags with a note, with a list of supplies of things that we are needing for the homeless youth and the refugees in that city. Again, so we are handing these off door to door and tracking through the affluent neighborhoods, and also leaving with them, you know, little pamphlets on a different topic, biblical topics or health or something positive, and that's what we were doing, and with the note saying what the supplies needed were, and that it would be picked up on Friday during the conference by a bunch of other, you know, thousands of young people that are going to be helping do something positive to benefit the city. And also we were able to visit a couple refugee families that were just new, that have been in refugee camps. So welcome to America. Such a stark contrast, such a stark difference from, you know, what they'd been experiencing. And it was so beautiful to see how God even answered prayers for that, because the leader, Tara, who was the VP for evangelism for this, she identifies so much, her family being refugees. I always pronounce it wrong, I think, but she's from the Hmong, H-M-O-N-G people in Laos, and her family came over when they were after the Vietnam War, because as I understood it, the Hmong people were allies with America, and so after Vietnam they were being pursued by the communists and the soldiers, and they had to flee for their lives. And just a phenomenal story of how God, how her family not only became Christians in Laos, starting with her grandpa, and then how they came to America, and just how the Lord has led in each one of their lives and brought them through so much. So she'd been praying for somebody who could speak the languages of the refugees that we'd be visiting. We weren't sure who they even were, but just knowing that that would be a critical thing. And so it was so beautiful that one of the people that came on the mission trip, his name was Emmanuel, and he had only been in the U.S. for a year. And he'd spent 20 out of his 21 years in a refugee camp in one of the countries in Africa, and he knew multiple languages, and so he was able to be an interpreter for us as needed. And also just the gift that he was, because he'd already spent his first year in transition, knowing the hardships, knowing such the steep learning curve that they were facing at that time. And so different groups of us would go and help at the homes, or, you know, help with cleaning, or take them shopping, or just socialize and answer questions, and just love them. Welcome to America. And so that was such a neat experience also, and getting connected with one of the ministries there that connected us even with those refugees, because the woman in charge of that herself had been an asylum seeker from Syria, and so her own story of just coming to America and the challenges, and now being able to help others that are in her same positions in that transition. Such an amazing, amazing woman. And yeah, so we were doing that. Another thing that we were helping with on the mission trip was restoring an old church that was over 150 years old, and it really just needed some help. So we were split up in teams between these three different projects or opportunities, I'll just say that way, for the week. And all of us, I think, help with the distribution of the bags at some point for a day or more. But then we split off into groups. And I was on a site for the church. And it was just so fascinating. And because I just want to share all the testimonies that happened there. The reason that this thing with the church came about is because another young adult, young professional, God had given him a ministry, and I've asked permission to share all their stories. And so his name is Ostap with Build and Restore International. I'm looking for my Bible. And Ostap was from the Ukraine. He said that he and his father came over to America when he was, in the early 90s. I'll just say it was in the early 90s, and they had to work for a year and then bring his mother and sister over. He said high school was never his thing. And so in high school, he's like, I think he said he graduated with a 1.59 GPA. And he had over like $5,000 worth of outstanding speeding tickets, and they were threatening to take away his car and his license. He's like, my life had to change. So in that, he ended up going to college, ended up working in corporate America, and he was like, man, I would lose track of $5,000 a month. Like that would just flow through my fingers and I wouldn't even miss it. And it got to the point when he was in his 30s, early 30s, he was just like, God, if this is success, I have it, but don't you have something more for me? And a couple days later, or a week later, he got this flyer in the mail for a school of evangelism called Amazing Facts. And he was just felt so strongly impressed that he was supposed to go. So he just said, well, Lord, if it's your will, it's your bill. And then, a short time later, he ended up opening up his garage and seeing his most beloved dirt bike, because he liked to race. So his most beloved, newest dirt bike. And he just felt strongly impressed he was supposed to sell it. And when he advertised it, the person came, paid cash for that asking price, no questions at all. He took that same amount of cash and handed it off to the School of Evangelism for his time there. As he was going around the globe after that, sharing the gospel, sharing Bible prophecy in different countries, he recognized within himself that there is no greater adrenaline rush than just seeing souls come to Christ and lives being transformed, and being able to help in communities in other ways to build up humanity, to build up those communities, to build up health, to build up families, to build up. And when he was back in the U.S. and he was helping and sharing another prophecy seminar in Alabama, I believe it was, the host that he was staying with came up to him one day. I was just like, hey, I have a word from the Lord, and you'll find it in Isaiah 58. I keep looking down for finding Isaiah 58. So Ostap took that, and when he was back in California after this, he's like, I spent 3 weeks just praying and reading over Isaiah 58, and nothing was standing out to me until the third week. And verse 12 stood out to him, and it just says, those from among you will rebuild the ancient ruins. You will raise up the age-old foundations. You will be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets in which to dwell. 3 months later, he had a ministry, he had a website, he had a board, and it's called Build and Restore International. So they go internationally and also domestically to help build or restore churches and schools and orphanages and whatever that need is. It's a non-profit organization, and he has lived by faith the last 3.5, 4 years now, and just seeing how God supplies the resources, or people call up and be like, hey, what is the need for your next trip you're going on? Tell us the list and we'll purchase it, and then you just go to that local hardware store or whatever the store is and pick it up. And just seeing how God comes through again and again for him. And I was so blessed to hear his story, because God just at this time, and still in this time, he had me, before I went to my internship, he was just like, sell everything you have and come and follow me. And so I had sold everything. I arrived in the Midwest with only what fits in my car, still needing to downsize more. And just like, I'm living off of, you know, my resources, not working for 6 months. I'm in that stage of like, what does it look like after this, Jesus? Starting in January, what is my next step in life? So I was just so encouraged to see somebody who was walking by faith, who had been living this out for the last 3.5 years, and just how he was so inspiring to so many of the young men there also, because there were so many amazing stories, because again, you're with a bunch of people that are leaders in their own capacities, in their own spheres, coming together to work together as leaders to prepare for this group of young people, and also to bless the city and help in the city whilst we're there. So there's so many amazing stories and such excitement just to share all the things that the Lord had done in our past, also to bring us to this point, all the stories of his goodness and provision and the plans that he has us running with him on right now. Anyways, so all that to say, also, again, I did not know at the beginning when I was coming there. I kept telling people, I was like, I don't know why I'm supposed to come here. I just know the Lord has told me to come here. And so that was even so hard on me, like with my friend in California, because I want to be a good friend, but I could only spend so much time there. But again, her health was in critical condition for the months before, and I couldn't be there because of my internship, and God provided for another friend who could work out there, work remotely for a bit, and then his workplace held his job to help her out. And that was the person that was supposed to be there at that time anyways, because they had more medical knowledge. But when you have a friend who like can go into tachycardia whilst they're just sitting there, like it does not know if they're going to make it through the night. You know, she got to the point where she's like, you know what, I used to just praise God every morning that I would see the next day. And now I'm like, God, just let me die. Like it had gotten to that point. And so I'm feeling torn as a friend, and still hearing I need to be going to this mission trip. And so I'm just like, God, my friend's a believer. I trust her with you. I trust that this is the step I'm supposed to be taking, but my heart is just so torn. So I don't know. And that's all I could say is, all I know is I'm supposed to be going, and I don't know why yet. And so as I'm there and working with each of these people and these projects, and I was working on the construction site for this church, and I was so glad, because when I got there, I was like, oh, Jesus, your church doesn't look so good. Jesus, thank you that we can help, restore this, and that we have the manpower to do this right now. And for the conference, when more young people are going to be coming in and save so much money in this, and just be able to do it so quickly with all of the help that we have coming. And it was neat because during one of those lunch periods, I was able to talk with another female that was on the trip. And, I'm a lot older than I look, and I probably say this in every video. And so, but I feel like I have to tell this to people because she was just like telling me, I asked her, I was like, girl, how old are you? And she was just like, oh, I don't tell people my age. I'm forever 30. I'm like, well, whatever, I'm older than you. So I'm like, you don't have to hide nothing with me. And so it just kind of opened things up. But again, just hearing a story of of that I know so well, of life not looking what you thought it would look like when you're at the age that you're at now, in your, mid 30s and beyond, in my case. But just to hear, the disappointment, I thought I would be married. I thought I would have had kids by now. I thought I would have been further along in my career, and I'm not. And just expecting to have been married and not going through with that wedding. And so I just shared with her a bit of my previous story and all of those same expectations that did not come to pass because of the choices of that individual that I was expecting to marry. And the Lord just he ended it. And the Lord was like, have nothing to do with this. Walk away, have nothing to do with this. And so, just to be able to talk with her and be a safe place, and it just blew my mind because we only had a 20-minute conversation during our lunch at that time, and she talked to me later that night, and she was like, Dana, you have no idea how much that you just helped me. She's like, I've been suffering and I've been crying out to God for God to send me somebody that I could talk to, because I can't talk to my parents about this. I can't talk to anybody in the church about this. I cannot. Like, my whole life is just up in the air right now, basically. And God sent you to me. And like, even in that moment, I was just like, God, you are so good. You are so good. Like, you hear the cries of your children here, and you're like, hey, I know somebody, and I'm going to send Dana to you. And so I just felt so honored. And so we kept talking and just sharing life on life. And it was a beautiful thing. And in the midst of all these other projects that we're doing, and again, I had overpacked because I drove there, and I was like, okay, I need clothes for construction, I need clothes for outreach, I need clothes for just whatever. So I had some extra clothes because I wasn't quite sure what to expect. It's December, it's the Midwest, Kentucky. It's cold for the most part. And anyways, and then it was getting closer to the time of the mission trip being done and the conference starting, and I was just praying because people kept asking. They're like, hey, Dana, are you going to stay for the conference? And I was like, well, I haven't planned for it, and it's not something that I have in my budget for. And they're just like, oh, well, you should stay. And I was praying about it each morning in my devotional time. And finally one morning, the Lord was just like, be still and know that I am Lord. Be still and know that I am God, which is always like, you're staying. And I was like, okay, well, there were some young people, because it's mission trip style. Like, we are staying at a church. The girls are staying in some of the classrooms in the church. The guys are staying in the gym or showering in the showers in the gym. And so it's mission trip style in the U.S. on air mattresses. And there were going to be some young people that were going to be staying in the hotels closer to the downtown conference. And I was like, oh, maybe I can just stay here at the church where it sounds like some of the other young people are staying here for the conference and just driving in 20 minutes each day. And so I asked about that, and that seemed like a possibility. Again, like, I've just learned to trust the Lord, because even in me needing to go back and work and just being like, wow, God, my finances for the month of January, I know you have a plan and a provision. I have just enough to cover my bills. But I would have had more, but the Lord had asked me to give of my resources to help somebody else make it the last couple months of the internship. So otherwise I could have lasted till March or April without working, but the Lord was like, no. And so I'd already learned give. And I love to give. I don't like being in a position of having to receive and to look poor or to look like, I don't like that at all. And so, but again, you have to give and you have to receive. And so I was just trusting the Lord. Lord, again, I've given when you've told me to give. I trust that you have a plan and a provision. I do not have the resources for this conference. I do not have the resources for a hotel. I just don't, it's not in my budget, but you make a way. And so it's so interesting, like, after the Lord told me to stay, and the girl that had talked to me about just some life disappointments. She was like, so Dana, are you going to stay? And I was like, yeah, the Lord told me to stay. And so I'm going to stay and I'll see if I can stay at the church. She was like, oh no. I already have a hotel booked and paid for. And so you're going to stay with me. And I was like, I don't have the resources for that. Like, I can't contribute to that. She's like, but it's already paid for. I paid for it. I didn't ask you to pay for it. And she's like, besides that, I got one where I could cook. And so, because I eat healthfully. And so she's like, I'm going to cook and you're welcome to eat my food also. And I was like, okay, well, I have enough resources for food. It's not that slim. But it just worked out so beautiful because her big concern, being an international person, was like, hey, what do I do for transportation whilst I'm there? Well, I had driven, I had the car. So again, just being able to, I have a car, you need transportation, perfect. And so the beauty of being able just to have longer times, just to talk in depth during the conference. And I didn't even bother going, registering for the conference. Since I was older, it would have cost 4 times the amount. And I'm like, it's not even worth it, guys. I'm just gonna take a couple days to fast and pray and seek the Lord because I really just need to hear from him for this next year. And also I'll just be there for the outreach day and help on site because Ostap had requested that I would help with the church projects and finishing those up on the construction day, on the outreach day. And then also, what else? Yeah, and then Sabbath, it was free for the community and anyone that wanted to come. So I just would register for that. Anyways, so on Thursday when I was praying about this, while everyone else was at the conference, I'm just asking the Lord, there was a verse that stood out to me as I was reading in the Bible, and it just said, he gives seed to the sower. And I was like, okay, Jesus, I don't know what this looks like for me going back. But you promise that you'll give me the seed and I'm the sower and you're going to provide this for me. And I'd already applied for one job because I was like, okay, I am just here temporarily. I'm just here till May. And right at the end of, right before Christmas break, I'm having to backtrack a minute. The final night of the internship before break, God told me I was done. I was done. And the Lord always has a verse for me that he just puts in my path again and again, some way, somehow, just confirming that. It's so simple. It just says, behold, I'm doing a new thing. Don't you perceive it? And I was like, oh, so he just kept doing that all through December. I was like, okay, I'm not continuing on in this internship. I'm done. What do you have? And so I'd applied for just a job I thought I could do temporarily, even if I was going to be in school originally also. And they're like, yeah, we're going to do interviews in the new year. So I was just waiting to hear back from that, thinking that would be a sure thing. And anyways, but regardless, I'm like, okay, you give seed to the sower. So that's my clue. You'll provide what I need. During the conference outreach day, I was helping, organize the teams in the different areas. So whether it's like, okay, we need a group in the sanctuary, we need a group downstairs, we need a group outside, we need a group in the girls' bathroom, we need a group for this and a group for that. And so just orchestrating those things. And I saw these couple of guys and they had on this shirt and I was just like, Gideon Rescue Company. Huh. Well, I don't know what that is, but they're both wearing the same shirt and they look like they're leaders and they're outdoorsy. So I am going to make them the leaders of the outdoor projects. And so got them started on that, go into the girls' bathroom. Originally we weren't going to be painting that. We are painting that apparently on that day. And I had some girls that were in high school who had never painted before and they were my team. So just in all of that, the painting and trying to teach them how to roll and them being in clothes that they didn't want to get any paint on, but they still wanted to paint. There ended up being a lot of drops on the vinyl wood floor. I was so thankful that it was vinyl so that we could wipe it up. Anyways, but they decided they were done about lunchtime and there was still more to go. So I was like, okay, I'll finish off this. And then I see these guys from wearing the Gideon Rescue Company shirts come in and they're like, hey Dana, we're done. What else do you have for us? I'm like, hey, you want to help with the bathroom? And you see the floor, we got to wipe this stuff up. And so they came in to help and it was just so neat to catch up with I didn't even know, like I knew Corey. He's one of the founders, leaders of Gideon Rescue Company. And I had gone to school with him in undergrad, like 2006. Yeah. So they're a couple years younger than me. And him, and then there was another guy, and he didn't have the Gideon Rescue Company shirt on, and but he was with them. I was like, hey, my name's Dana, what's your name? And he was just like, oh, my name's Brock. And I was like, Brock? Like, I could not tell this man with all his facial hair on that was the same person that went to school with Corey, that studied international relief and rescue. And so we just caught up on one another's lives and what the Lord has been doing. And my mind was just blown again with the ministry the Lord has given them with the Gideon Rescue Company. So I got to tell you about it real briefly. And with the Gideon Rescue Company, again, these guys have studied international relief and rescue, and they have jobs. Brock's married, Corey is engaged, and they have, it's small. It's something small. Them and a few other people. I think Chris was there also. Yes, he was. And anyways, they respond to disasters. And so I remember when I lived on the East Coast, and the storm hit there in fall of 2018. Was it the fall? I don't remember anymore. These days and years blend together. The hurricane hit, and Corey and a team came out, bringing supplies, bringing a boat, searching, rescuing, and that's all I remembered. And then he was telling me about how there is a private airline that will fly them wherever they want to go for these things. And so even with Hurricane Michael and the panhandle of Florida, they did 40 trips from the Midwest down to Florida with supplies and with literature also, because they take, again, we use these things all the time, glow tracks, just to encourage people, to give hope, to let people know that God cares about them, and whatever the different topics are that seem applicable, that God is near, and that they can learn more about God in the Bible and Bible prophecy and things like that, Bible studies. And so they would take it to the church that they're affiliated with there and distribute it there. So people, not only do they get the resources that they need, but they're able to be ministered to and receive hope. And that's the whole thing of Gideon Rescue Company. They say, you can live for like 3 days or whatever without water, and 3 weeks, I don't remember how long, without food, but you can only live like however long without hope. You can't live without hope. So they just find in these critical times when people are facing loss and devastation and natural disasters, that's where they're crying out, where is God? Why is all of this going on? And it's just so amazing. So even when they went down to the Bahamas, they were down there, and they're passing out, water, they're passing out food. It's the 5th day after the Hurricane Dorian, and the people there in the airport waiting to leave the Bahamas, they're just like, we're fine with the food, we're fine with the water, but we need what's in your hand. We need to understand, where is God? Why are all of these things happening again and again to us with these natural disasters? And so that's what they love to do, is share Christ, share hope, and help people. And whilst they were there, I don't remember how many days they were there, but the airline company is like, hey, we got to get you, your team, and your boat out immediately. We're going to send down a bigger plane, get you guys out. If we don't get you out right now, we don't know the next time that we could get you out even individually. So the plane came, picked up all that whatever, and they left. And I was like, Corey, how much would something like this cost? And he was like, thought about it. He's like, $1.5 to $2 million. And again, this is free. This is the goodness of the Lord, because this is his ministry, and they just run with it. They go where God sends them and help with disaster, help with relief, and in the midst bring hope. And it's so beautiful. And so my heart was just beaming again. I was like, God, you are so good. And I just love that these men walk in faith. They know your voice. It's their delight to listen, to follow, to partner with you, to do great exploits with you, for the sake of your beloved people, for the sake of humanity, for the sake of preparing people for the coming of Christ. So this was just fantastic, and I loved it. And so many other good things happened at that conference. And when I was coming back to the Midwest after that, I just was praying still about this, and the Lord just let me know that I would be in the wilderness for a period of time right when I got back. And it wasn't like, God leading the children of Israel through the wilderness. It was more like Christ and Satan in the wilderness. Like, everything about this situation is going to test you. Everything about this situation is going to make you question your assignment, make you question the location that God's brought you to, make you question your identity. Are you hearing from the Lord? But wait on the Lord. And just like Christ, like, wait on the Lord. Don't give up before. So I was like, oh, so I'm just grateful that the Lord like lets me know things in advance. And so, paid my bills for the beginning of January, but again, not hearing back about this job, not having the freedom even to look for a full-time job, and knowing that I wouldn't be there. Like, I'm only there till May and maybe longer. I'm not hearing move. I'm not hearing anything about it. I just know that I'm supposed to be there, so I'm pressing into the Lord. The other thing that happened, the last day of the conference, because it had rained during the outreach day, and so the young people that came, the couple thousands of young people that came for it, came back with so many of these tracts because they're paper, and we'd already given them out when we had, different topics, when we had gone distributing the bags. But now we were going to just leave some more, but they weren't able to because they would have gotten soaked and wasted. And so there was so many of these left over, thousands of them. And Tara, the evangelism leader, she was like, hey, if anybody wants to take these, take them with you. They're free. I knew exactly right then that this was the seed for this sower. So I took thousands of these, and I knew immediately that I was supposed to be distributing them out in the community, in the city that I was in, where my internship had been, that I'm not returning to. And so it was so perfect because, like, looking back, just seeing the hand of the Lord on all of it, being able to hand out to people hope. This is January. It's freezing outside. I'm walking a couple hours a day in the cold, just dropping these off at people's front doors. So it just talks about the difficulties that are going on in the world, and so many of these disasters and crime and just challenges we face as people and as families. But it says, when all these things are going on, if these things are weighing you down, look up. The Bible offers prophecies that talk about these very things and offer hope. And then it goes in and talks about the second coming of Christ as the only solution for all that's going on in the world. Because God doesn't have a Band-Aid plan. He has a plan that at some point, this is all going to end. Like, sin, sickness, suffering will end. This is not what we were ever created for. This is not what our destiny is for. Our destiny is to be united with Christ and to live free of sorrow and suffering and pain and death. And this time on earth is to make that decision for us to follow Christ, to walk with Christ. What is eternal life? It's knowing Christ. And so when he comes, he's taking us to heaven, for, the Bible says 1,000 years. And then he's going to come back and make the earth and make it all brand new. All of this is going to... So again, the solution is looking up. It's not in the governments. It's not in the things of this world. And it's just so important as I'm speaking about this in June, and you guys can look back and see all that has happened from January to June. How much do we need hope? How much are people looking for answers? How much are people crying out, where is God in all of this? So it was great to be able to take those and distribute them, not knowing all that was coming down the line all these months later. And now being able to look back and just seeing, like, God, you're so good. Like, God, you are so good, because God knew all this stuff was coming upon the earth and to affect us. And so to be able to hand out just some of the different topics. So hope for families, secrets of peak mental health. Am I good enough? This is on the gospel, on salvation, that that Christ has given each one of us, should we receive it. Return to rest. This is about the Sabbath. God has given us rest. I have ones on is there hope after death? This happens to be a Spanish title. But is there hope after death? What happens when we die? What does the Bible say about this? And, steps to health. How valuable are those? Like in January, I'm passing these things out, and it just blows my mind, the goodness of the Lord, just to how he wants to prepare people and put hope in people's path before all these things come to pass. And another thing that was going on that was so beautiful, one of my best friends, her and her husband and their kids, God told them at the beginning of 2019 that they would be moving to Puerto Rico. My friend grew up in Puerto Rico but hasn't lived there, since 2001. And so that they would be moving there in 6 months, and that they were to go back and help restore after Katrina had taken place. And so fast forward, they get to Puerto Rico, and just she faces challenge after challenge there. And again, her husband is still finishing off things in DC. He works overseas also. So he's gone. So she's single parenting for a number of months. She gets adult chicken pox, and she's all these things. I think there was a car accident. It's just challenge after challenge. And if she's not rooted in the Lord, people are like, are you sure that God brought you here? Oh no, she's very sure God brought her here. And so then what's happening in January? What's happening in February in Puerto Rico? Earthquake after earthquake after earthquake after aftershock after aftershock. So I'm hearing all of this because my friend lives at the epicenter of it all. And she's just like, friend, it is a physiological and a psychological disaster that's taking place here right now. The earth does not stop moving. People can't sleep in their homes. They're cracked. Some of them are destroyed. Even for her, with the church she's affiliated with, 4 out of 5 of the churches and the church school connected with them completely destroyed, not usable. And her house stands. Her house was safe. And she's like, but all around me, like God is just speaking to her the promises and his protection. But so many people are experiencing so much fear, so much anxiety, so much panic. And even after Hurricane Katrina had come through, is it Katrina 2 years ago? Oh, time passes. Whatever it was that hit Puerto Rico. And my friend had told me that like a third of the population left. So I think it was around 3 million people. She's like, a third of the population left. And now with all of these earthquakes, people are leaving even more. And many are just like, we don't even know what to do. This is our home, this is our place, but where they lived, there was just destruction. And there's refugee camps. There were 3 refugee camps. You have a couple thousand people in each one, and people are sleeping in their vehicles at night. They're sleeping in the open because the houses aren't safe. My friend is like, I sleep with my shoes on, fully clothed, with my purse around me, with a bag in case we have to leave in the middle of the night. But even then, she's just counting her blessings and the goodness of the Lord for all the promises that he's giving and all the ways he's providing, and even providing a little dog for her and her little girls. And this dog, because animals sense things before humans, this dog would start barking before they sense the earthquake. Before the earthquake would come, so they would know to leave the house. And so in all of that, I'm getting a text message then from Gideon Rescue Company, because what are they doing? They are deploying people and teams to Puerto Rico. So it was so amazing to be able to network with them, connect them with my friend and some of the local people in that area. Just the way that God is just starting things and moving things and bringing hope to people. The Gideon Rescue Company was able to send in a couple of groups before COVID hit. I think it was 4 groups. And just the amazing things that they were able to do, and the doors that God opened for them there to share courage and hope and to pray for people and just bring peace and resiliency training. When you're going through a disaster, there's PTSD. So how do we navigate this? How do we process through, and giving people time and space to process through their stories and process through this in a way that's healthy rather than fear. And There's just so many amazing stories I could tell you, but it was so great because I'm like, God, thank you so much for sending me to this mission trip, and all of the things that you're bringing about as a result of that. And again, what was something else big that hit the U.S. before COVID? The death of Kobe Bryant and and Gigi. How amazing. I just felt so honored. Like, even at that time, I'm reading posts on the internet of people just, most churches don't teach, or many people are not aware of what the Bible says about what happens when you die. Because for so long, this tradition that crept into Christianity, which is philosophical, it's actual Plato, like dualism of the soul, crept into the Catholic Church, is still in Protestantism, as we're recovering, the teachings of the Bible rather than many man-made traditions that crept into Christianity. And so, but we don't go straight to heaven when we die. We don't go straight to hell. There is no thing as purgatory for those that are taught a purgatory. So what happens? Well, the Bible tells us that we're asleep, that there's two resurrections, a resurrection of the righteous and a resurrection of eternal punishment. The punishment's eternal, not the punishing. And so we get an option to choose in this lifetime to have a relationship with Jesus, for him to give us new hearts and new lives, and to walk with God, and that be our outcome, and to be part of that first resurrection. And so when I'm seeing all of these posts about, like, well, where is he? I hope that he's happy, and listening to even his wife speak about this, and I'm just like, they don't know what happens when you die. And so, I'll do another YouTube on this, but it was just so precious to me that the Lord foreseeing all that, because what am I carrying? I'm carrying stuff on, is there hope after death? I'm carrying stuff on the second coming of Christ, giving hope to people. And then again, what's next coming on our planet? COVID. And so I'm passing out, steps to health. And again, what happens when you die? And hope for the future, about the coming of Christ and the resurrection, and being reunited with our loved ones. So this is what I'm going through. And at the same time, so there's more layers to this. I'm just praying, it's been been in this season with the Lord. And then I'm like, okay, God, and for February, I was like, God, I'm not sure how my bills are going to get covered, like, for February. And I had somebody just send me PayPal, an amount of money, and they're like, the Lord has impressed us that we need to send you this money. And I was just like, God, thank you for your goodness. Like, as we help others, the Lord makes sure that our needs are provided for also. So I was like, thank you for carrying me through getting my bills covered for the beginning month of February. And I was looking for a job. Again, I'm like, okay, I just need a temp job to get me through till May now. Something that's part-time, because the other thing that God let me know of is that this season was the season to write a book that he put on my heart over 15 years ago, but this was the timing. And I knew I couldn't have written it before, because there was things I needed to understand about Jesus that I couldn't. Things I needed to understand in my own heart about the gospel that I just couldn't write this book. I'm chewing on my hair. Before, and the Lord's like, this is the season. And I even had some people speak to me, and that the Lord had revealed that whilst I was at the internship. And it meant so much, just those confirmations, because my life feels so different from what so many people have, as I'm called to be, I'm just called to go where God sends me, is all I can say. And so one of the other interns, she was just like, Dana, the Lord's given me a word for you. And she's like, I saw this picture of a pen, and you're that pen. And that pen was in the hand of God. And there have been chapters of your life and of your story that you did not want the Lord to write in the way that it would be written, but you allowed him to write it. And she's like, you're supposed to write a book and share these things and share your journey. And I was like, yeah, I know, it just hasn't been the timing. But, that was spoken to me in the fall before the end of the internship. And another person, one of the leaders, said to me one day, and I hadn't really talked to that particular leader for the prayer rooms, before. And he just said to me one day at the end of the internship, he's like, Dana, do you write? And I was like, well, it's my best form of communication, honestly, because it's just my best form of communication, to get everything just out and reorganize it and make sure it's worded how I want it to be. That's why I don't do well in debates. I melt. I'm just like, let me write this out. I'll get back to you. And so, but he was just like, the Lord has shown me that you're actually a very good writer. I was like, thanks, because I have for so long just wanted to be able to communicate well. Being afraid to communicate, like scared stiff, you would have heard that in my previous videos, but just like to be a communicator and to share with people. And so he just said to me, he's like, you're actually a very good writer, and you're supposed to write a book. Again, I told him, I know, thank you. It just hasn't been the timing yet. But he was like, well, when it is the time, just know that the Lord has given you the gift and it's going to be a blessing to many people. So this is what my time was supposed to be. So I'm looking for a job that's just going to cover my bills enough to give me time and to write this book. And so I found a job, just a temporary part-time job. And I was so excited because I couldn't do Uber. I couldn't do any of those delivery apps because of the state that I'm in. You have to have a chauffeur license. And I don't have a chauffeur license. And I was like, okay, Lord, you have hedged me in. But what ended up happening is I saw a notification for delivering flowers on Valentine's Day and the day before for, just a couple days. And I was like, hey, I could just pick that up, no problem. And then I had got a call from a florist that I submitted my application to, and they were just like, hey, we'd love to have you come work for us for Valentine's Day, but I also have work beforehand for that whole week, and I also am looking for a full-time driver and a part-time driver afterwards. And I was like, perfect. So started doing that, doing floral delivery, and what was so amazing about that is that I got to listen to my Jesus music all day in the car. And also at the same time, whenever I would drop off, flowers at businesses or at homes or hospitals, I also leave hope with people. Health, whatever the encouragement is that I feel impressed to leave with that floral delivery, I leave it. And it was so much fun, even that, going into the hospitals and just, there's so much political correctness that takes place this day, and to having done some hospital chaplaincy also, and knowing that, it was so refreshing to be able just to even go in as a floral deliverer, not having to abide by any of that, and just ministering to people and just praying for the patients whilst I'm there, and just seeing their tears, whether they're believers or not believers, but just their tears in their physical suffering that they're going through, just knowing that the Lord is near and the Lord cares for them. And I can't tell you, I had so many people, whether in hospitals or other places, just be like, the Lord sent you to me today. And I was like, yeah, I know. Because I would always pray, God, just give me the orders, because there was multiple delivery drivers. I'm like, give me the orders for the people that are for me, that you want me to encourage today. And so I'm driving all around this big city. I could put on 75 to 250 miles a day, getting the outlying towns around it also. Oh my goodness. I was like, okay, Jesus, this is hard on my little car. All this mileage is racking up quickly, but just to be able to work 3 out of 7 days a week, keep my bills covered. And then at the same time, it was beautiful because I'm passing a lot of first day churches. And again, I don't know your background, but I keep the Bible Sabbath, which is Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. It's the 4th commandment, and it's kept in the Old Testament, it's kept in the New Testament. It's just that Sunday crept in as a tradition, a couple hundred years down the line in Christianity, enforced by the Catholic Church. They own it, and it's a tradition that's still in many Protestant churches. But it's not the Sabbath. It's not God's holy day. And so that's why I just differentiate between first day churches and non-first day churches. So I was passing out to these churches that I would pass by, just ping through the door or leave on a car in the parking lot area offers for Bible prophecy, because a lot of First Day churches don't know Bible prophecy. They don't teach Daniel and Revelation. That's something that came later on in Protestant history. God used so many of these Protestant movements down through time, the people down through time, to re-reveal truths that were hidden through the Middle Ages. And so each one was valuable as they lived up to the light and the scriptures that God was showing at that time. And so again, I'm just saying I'm able to share Bible prophecy and Daniel and Revelation and be able just to pass this out to all these churches as I'm driving by, offers for free Bible studies. And so that was my little mission trip, like every day, and I loved it. And then at the same time, just finishing off some presentations for the internship on Bible prophecy, and just almost done. But another layer to this story is my roommate and I, because our apartment mate, our lease was up at the end of May, and again, I wasn't hearing move, and the Lord's very clear to me, when my time is to move and my time to stay. So I wasn't sure. She wasn't hearing anything from the Lord on that either. So we're just like, okay, well, maybe we'll do a month-to-month contract. It's a little bit more, but it'll be worth it, because we're not sensing that we need to be in a full year contract either. And then this COVID thing is going on, and my roommate ends up heading up to Nowheresville, Midwest state, because her family lives out on a farm and she can work remotely. And I'm still there just praying, like, God, what do you have for me? Like, again, I don't know what to be doing. And I was like, I need you to speak so clearly to me. Because even at the beginning of COVID, I was like, oh, well, maybe I need to get another job. We don't know how long this is lasting. Maybe I need to do like some Amazon deliveries as well. I could work full time, get that done in 3 or 4 days, and still have all this free time. And at that time, I didn't know if the floral business would be able to stay open, but it actually was able to stay open. And I had been encouraging my boss, who has a Christian background, still growing as a Christian. I mean, we're all growing, but just it felt like more beginner Christian. And so, but they were able to stay open because it's under agriculture. And not only that, but business was booming because all these other floral shops are closing down, and we're not delivering to hospitals. We're not delivering to businesses. We will only deliver to homes. So how easy is that? You just drop it off on the doorstep, ring the doorbell, like FedEx and Amazon, and walk away and give a phone call just confirming it if you need to. So the risk is low. So I'm just praying to the Lord, God, what do I need to be doing here? I need to know about this, because he had told me not to apply, not to go through with my interview for Amazon. And I was just like, okay, well, what do you have for me? Because I'm like, I could do chaplaincy work. I could have a regular job, but I didn't have the freedom to do that. And I'm not knowing, what this plan is for the year. And so just praying through many things. And the Lord gave me a Bible verse when I was praying one day. I was praying and fasting, actually. And I was on my way to Romans in the Bible, the book of Romans, and I passed over Matthew chapter 2 and just started reading. And Matthew chapter 1 and 2, and it's on the birth of Jesus and how the Lord, appeared to Joseph in a dream, and he appeared to Mary, and he appeared to Mary being like, hey, you're going to have a baby by the Holy Spirit. And he appeared to Joseph being like, don't divorce that woman. This thing is of me. And then when the wise men were coming and they had to stop in Jerusalem, and the religious leaders were there, and Herod was there, and Herod, who wants to kill the baby, is trying to mask that and being like, hey, come back after you visit baby Jesus in Bethlehem and let me know where he's at, because I'm going to come worship him. But the angel appears to the wise men and we're like, hey, you need to go back another way. So in all honest sincerity of heart, they've been like, yes, Herod will come back. But the angel was like, no, you're going to go home a different way. Angel appears to Joseph again in a dream. He's like, Joseph, you need to get up, take the child, and go to Egypt. So all I took from that right then was, I'm going to be mobilized at some point and moving at some point, and that God would be very clear with me. And he can be very clear with me. And so I kept doing my deliveries. So that was on a Sunday. The following Saturday, so Sabbath, I was having a devotional time, and I usually read the Bible, and then there's an app that I like called Daughters of the King International that's just been such a blessing in my life. And I don't remember the full like short devotional that app had that day, but it was talking about like if God asked you to leave a 6-figure job, trust him. And whatever else it was talking about, I was just like, okay, I'm feeling this is you need to be done here. And then the next day, it was just talking about if God's leading you into a wilderness, trust him and follow him. I start packing up on Sunday. I know immediately, like, I need to be done. And I told my parents previously, hey, I may come up and visit you, because they were living 3.5 hours away. But, with my work schedule right now, I could only be there for a couple of days, but I'll come visit you. But I knew immediately I was done in the city I was in, and I needed to go up and stay with my parents and shelter in place there and relocate there. So I was just like I was just like, oh, but God, I gave my word that I would be here till May, helping with these flower deliveries. That Monday is a critical day because they're down a driver, and this is short notice. I've never not given notice for a job. And so I don't know how to navigate this, but I contacted my boss and I was like, hey, this is what the Lord is telling me. It doesn't make sense to me right now, but I am not even going to be in on Monday. I'm still praying about it. And if I hear from him otherwise, I will be in on Monday. But otherwise, for right now, I'm not. And I'm a contract worker, but still, I just feel like it's proper business etiquette to give notice. And I was like, and I'm also just having to trust that if the Lord is telling me this right now, that he has a plan and a provision for you. I called my friends that Sunday also. I'm like, hey guys, I need prayer right now because this is what I hear the Lord saying to me. And it's very clear, but I'm uncomfortable with it because I gave my word that I would be here until May, and it's the end of March. So I'm short a month. And anyways, so I talked to my friends, and the next morning on Monday morning, one of my friends sent me a devotional, Streams in the Desert devotional, and it was talking about how, if God blocks a path, trust him. Because if we are to continue on down that path, we will find out the danger that he was trying to protect us from, but it will be to our harm. But if we wait, and if we just allow the Lord to block that path for us and trust him, we'll just find out later, what he was protecting us from. I knew I was done completely. I packed up everything, most of my stuff that would fit in the car. Again, my rent goes to the end of May. My lease goes to the end of May. And I was like, well, I guess this place is sitting empty for a month. I took pictures of everything, just in case, there's flood, fire, earthquake, not earthquake, but just like tornado, break-in, since my roommate and I were going to be gone for the month of April, and me just thinking, no, I think I'm done. But still, I still left some stuff there, but took most of it with me. And so I came up to my parents' place and on March 31st. And then through the month of April, the other thing that I'd been praying about, even in January, I was impressed to start looking through teaching English online. But, and I narrowed it down, to a company that I was going to apply for. But even then, that last week before I moved, I was just like, God, I really just need a confirmation. Right now it's telling me I need to read a kid's book that's 2 minutes long on a video interview and submit that. This girl don't got no kids books. You told me to sell everything or get rid of everything, and the library's not open because of COVID, and I don't have time to go, sit through kids books. So I was like, can you just who can I get a kids book from? If you want me to be doing this, I need a kids book today. In the middle of my day, one of my friends called me, and they happen to have kids. And I was like, hey, do you have a kid's book that I can borrow? They're like, yeah. I was like, I'm gonna pick it up tonight after work. So I was able to do my video, submit that. So April comes, and what am I doing in April? I'm doing more interviews with this online English teaching platform. And then I'm doing trial classes. You have no idea how terrified I was of this. Teaching English has been a fear of mine for years. Like I had friends that were out of college that would go and teach English in Korea, teach English in Japan, teach English over, in Asia. And I just always looked at that as heroic. My mom was a teacher and I just saw how much it consumed like her weekends, her evenings. And I was like, I don't want that for my life. But at the same time, I recognized how heroic it is. Like teachers are heroic. Everything that they face in a classroom on a daily basis, all the different personalities, all that students bring with them and in their little hearts and all the acting out, all the different learning styles, it's a lot. And so I was really intimidated by it. I'm like, how do they do all these lesson plans? And they're so structured and organized. So it's so funny, like even in the month of April, I'm just like, friends, you gotta pray for me. Like I gotta do this class and I have this much amount of time and I'm scared and blah, blah, blah. And I pass. And you know what? I love it. And again, it's just enough to cover my bills right now. And that's all I need right now is to write this book, have my bills covered, and spend some time with my family that's here. So this has been my full update from December to May, and I'm so blessed of how the Lord has just worked it all out, and even providing a roommate to take over my lease, just a couple days or a week after I let my roommate know, because we were planning on figuring this out, and I was just like, I think I'm actually done. And I'll come and get my stuff. I'll pay for May's rent regardless, and ended up finding somebody who is needing to start renting a place at the beginning of May. It was going to work out perfectly. They're going to be around the place I was doing my internship. So a Christian, young female also. And I was like, God, you're so good. So I didn't even have to pay May's rent. My landlord was just like, yeah, we'll just rewrite the lease. Everything just worked out. So it's been that way. And just with COVID, there's been so many changes for all of us, and sheltering in place, and a lot of deaths, a lot of, I have friends in the medical profession, just seeing their fears and that they face, as mothers, as having young children, am I going to get this? I'm a frontline worker right now, and just all the fear that's been going on, and praying for them, and praying for friends who have lost parents or grandparents and to COVID, or because of COVID and not being able to access help. And I'm going to do a YouTube video on that also. But I just wanted to update you guys to declare the goodness of the Lord. Like in all that's going on, the Lord is near, the Lord cares, the Lord is a strong refuge. And the Bible says those who run to him are safe. And so I just see how much his goal is our eternal salvation, that we would be saved, and that we would choose Christ, that we would choose Christ as our Savior. And in that he's working and navigating our temporal circumstances, and also to the end goal of our eternal, and shaping us and forming us through the hardships, through the trials, through all these things, and just lavishing his goodness on us. And again, I just see the goodness of the Lord looking back, even though it was like, okay, what step are we taking? Now what step are we taking? How is this working out? But when I can look back and see all that God was weaving together, I just give him praise. I'm like, God, you're so amazing. And I just love how you care, and you go ahead of people to prepare for what's going to come. Anyways, that's it. This is long, but it's been full, and I hope that it encouraged you. Send it to somebody else. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like if you liked it, and pass it on to somebody else. Again, this has been the Gospel Nomad Girl, talking about life, love, and living by faith. Have a good day.